Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Kelly Green Hour, as it is a Keystone State battle between the 11-2 Philadelphia Eagles and the 10-3 Pittsburgh Steelers at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday night at Sunday afternoon, 4:25 p.m. The Steelers are looking for their first win in Philadelphia during the Super Bowl era. The last time they won in Philly was 1965. But since then, the Steelers are 0-10 in Philadelphia against the Eagles. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
Well, it was not your traditional week of preparation, as the media had to be swatted away like a bunch of annoying flies, and clearly it continues to be a point of contention heading into the weekend. But I mean, I'm ready for a good matchup. I think this is going to be a really good game, and it'll be really interesting to watch.
Yep, figures the media blows stuff out of proportion. The Philadelphia media, I should say, blows stuff out of proportion, as they usually do, and we can never have good things because one incy-wincy bad thing comes out the locker room, and they want to run away with it and try to tear down a season that's looking potentially super, if you know what I mean by that. But before we jump into this game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and on wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Be sure to like and subscribe and let us know how we're doing. And if you are joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the game, your prediction, players to watch. This is something we will do. Obviously, at the end of the episode, we will also give our Unheralded Player of the Week for week 14 in the NFL. I can't believe we're already in week 15. It's crazy how fast this season goes. The Philadelphia Eagles have clinched a playoff berth. They can potentially clinch the NFC East this week if they defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders lose to the New Orleans Saints. That is a road game for the Commanders. And then if that doesn't happen, it could happen next week when the Eagles travel to Landover, Maryland to face the Commanders in an big NFC East matchup. The Eagles' last 3 games after the Steelers game are all NFC East battles in Landover, Maryland against the Commanders, and then at the Link against the Cowboys and the Giants. And as we do know, Saquon Barkley is looking for a run at history, as he is 483 yards away from passing the all-time NFL single season rushing mark set by Eric Dickerson. So that's something, as Eagles fans, we can watch and see if it happens. Now, Connor, obviously all the talk this week was about Jalen and AJ and the passing game. Do you think, let's start with this question. Do you think this is a must-win game after everything that's happened this week for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I don't think so. I don't think it's must win, because at least from my perspective, we've been saying it. The Eagles are not going to win out. And if there was a game to lose, the 2 games that we said were really worth losing was the Ravens or the Steelers game. We destroyed the Ravens, had a very sloppy win over the Carolina Panthers, a sloppy win against the Panthers that caused this huge disruption. And then here we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, I think this game and the next 3 or 4 games says a lot more about the Pittsburgh Steelers than these next 4 games say or mean about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, of course, at the end of the day, I think that the media is going to run with it if we lose. I think that they're going to turn this season from an extremely promising season into a whole lot of questions of what about this? What about that? Can we make a run just because of one loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, if it does happen? But I'm not going to say that this is a must win, because me and you both predicted that we would not win out. And we predicted that one of the losses would probably come in one of these 2 AFC North matchups. And we got through the first one with a victory. If there was one that seemed most likely to lose, and we, hindsight being 2020, if we had to look back and this is what we knew the lead up to the Steelers game was going to be like, I would pick the Steelers game as a loss. And I mean, I don't, come prediction time, I'll I'll give you that truth. But I mean, I don't think it's a must win, but of course the media is going to play it out as a must win because things have gone a little bit awry, and they think that if we don't win this week, that there's a whole lot of issues within the locker room and a whole lot of issues with the team just because they lost a football game.
Yeah, and obviously with all the noise that happened this week, people are going to say that the Eagles have to win this game because if they lose, then it could kind of be a microcosm of last year and how this is around when a couple of weeks ago, around when the downturn started for the Eagles in the 2023 season. So a loss here, then there could be murmurs. But again, I don't think it's necessary. Do we want them to play well? Obviously. And anything could happen. Like the Eagles could go out there, put up 30 points and still lose the game because Russell Wilson, just had a great game. And was able to go up and down the field on the Eagles defense. Do we expect that to happen? Probably not. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be without George Pickens. The Eagles have never defeated Russell Wilson. So that's a thing that it's two different streaks going on here. The Eagles streak against the Steelers during the Super Bowl era and the Russell Wilson streak against the Eagles since he's been in the NFL. So Russell Wilson just seems to have the Eagles number, at least in the past he did with the Seahawks. But this will be an intriguing battle. Like when you think about it, if you look at the coaches, I love Mike Tomlin. If there's one coach that I would give up I'd give up almost anything to be my head coach, it'd be Mike Tomlin. He doesn't coach the offense. He doesn't coach the defense. Everybody talks about how, Nick Sirianni has to do one or the other or has to call plays. Mike Tomlin doesn't call plays. Jim Harbaugh doesn't call plays. John Harbaugh doesn't call plays. Dan Campbell doesn't call plays. Like, why does Nick Sirianni have to call plays? He doesn't have to. So, yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. Excuse me. Here we go again. I'm definitely intrigued by this coaching matchup because I think that the Steelers have the edge when it comes to coaching, at least the head coaching spot. When it comes to Vic Fangio against Arthur Smith, I think Vic Fangio probably has the edge there. I don't think Arthur Smith is that good of a coach. We saw what he did in Atlanta as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, he's okay, I guess. I don't know who the defensive coordinator for the Steelers is, but that battle, let me look it up real quick. That battle between the defensive coordinator,
Terrell Austin.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Terrell Austin for the Steelers against Kellen Moore. We're going to have to see what we could get from Kellen. What we envision the Eagles offense being under Kellen Moore is not what we've seen, obviously. They've transformed since the bye week. They've gone to a primary running team. And obviously when he was with Dallas and with the Chargers, what did Kellen Moore do? He wanted to throw. He was a former quarterback at Boise State. He wants to throw the football. But the Eagles' strength is the offensive line and Saquon Barkley. And obviously they have two great wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But you want to do what's running. It's what's working, excuse me. I'm not coming out here and changing the game plan just because of what was said this week and all the talk, about the passing game. You don't want to give T.J. Watt or Cam Hayward or Alex Highsmith or, Nick Herbig. You don't want to give them a chance to get off the ball and get after Jalen Hurts and cause fumbles, turnovers, interceptions, and whatnot. Run right at them. By running right at them, maybe they'll get on their heels, and then you'll be able to pass the ball. So hopefully the Eagles don't go away with what's gotten them through this 9-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it at the park with the Kellen Moore comment. I think obviously there's going to be some sort of overcompensation, but I'm hoping it's not an overcompensation. So I guess there's going to be a shift in the offense. The hope is just it's not going to be this overcompensation to like a 15 or 16, unless that's what the defense is giving you. And Jalen Hurts is hot. He's on fire. Don't flip to like this 15, 16 target game to A.J. Brown with 30 pass attempts just to overcompensate for what happened and what's been said this week. I know that Kellen Moore says he wants to get A.J. Brown more involved, and to think that he wouldn't want to would be an absolutely ludicrous thought to have. You do want to have A.J. Brown more involved. It just so happens that if things are working in a way that you can run the ball 75% of the time, you're going to continue to run the ball 75% of the time. And I think, just as much as too much passing can create something and show weakness because you're throwing the ball so much, not throwing the ball a lot also can show weakness and also can show inconsistency because obviously a guy like Jalen Hurts, he's not going to throw the ball a whole lot. So if you're not getting to throw the ball a whole lot or you're throwing it too much, both are not great things, but finding that happy median would be really good. But it's hard for Kellen Moore to find that happy median when Saquon Barkley's going for chunk after chunk after chunk. And I like the point that you made about, this team has a lot of guys that can come after you. But I think what's most important, this team, while their passing defense is not the best, they rank number 3 in interceptions forced in the NFL. And as a defense, they rank number 1 in turnovers forced with 28. So if there is a team that would completely eat Jalen Hurts alive for making mistakes and making bad decisions, it is 100% going to be this Pittsburgh Steelers team. We've met up against some great defenses, but this defense is known for forcing turnovers. Whereas some of the other ones, they're good at what they do, but they may not force as many turnovers. This team can cause interceptions, even though their passing defense isn't that good, and they can force a lot of turnovers, and that includes both fumbles, which they rank number 1 in, with 13 fumbles, and they rank number 3 with 15 interceptions. So you don't want to end up in a situation where Jalen Hurts, who we know can turn the ball over and make some bad decisions. You do not want to put him in a spot to make those bad decisions or potentially turn that ball over, because this is a team that will definitely make you pay.
Yeah, and the Eagles are coming into this game, pretty healthy. Britton Covey's the only one that's out. Everybody else is good to go. Looking at the Steelers, George Pickens is out. Larry Ogunjobi is out. And Deshaun Elliott, the starting safety, is out. So, the Eagles aren't going to have to deal with Pickens, who's really good. He can make a bunch of acrobatic catches. And as long as, look, TJ Watt is really good, but he hasn't gone up against Lane Johnson yet. And he typically lines up on that left side of the defense, which is the right side of the offense. So that should be a really, really good battle. And the Eagles tackles are the top 2 rated tackles in the NFL. So, this is going to be strength on strength. Who won Defensive Player of the Year last year? Was that Watt or was that Garrett? It doesn't matter because Watt has won it. It doesn't really matter. Watt has won it over the last couple of years. So, it's going to be a big time battle. I love Minkah Fitzpatrick as one of the safeties in the backfield. And Joey Porter Jr., he leads the league, I think, in penalties. So it wouldn't shock me if the Eagles come out and they want to try to get A.J. Brown involved early, but they should still not, they should still not go away from Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley should still be the focal point of the offense, but use the run to set up the pass. That's why I suggest lining up under center. You run from under center. You can do play action from under center. And when you do play action, that can allow Jalen Hurts to move the pocket and potentially get away from a TJ Watt or an Alex Highsmith or Cam Hayward. So, excuse me. So, the last time the Eagles played the Steelers, A.J. Brown had 3 touchdown catches, had a big game. Is he going to have another game like that? Probably not, but I'm sure they're going to go out there and target him. They're not going to wait until the 2 minutes left in the first half to target him. He's going to get targeted on the first drive. He should get targeted on the first drive, but don't shy away from continuing to give the ball to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I really hope that Kellen Moore is able to just find a balance and not over commit to one side. Like, this team feels like a team that can do really good as a 55% rushing team, 45% passing team, something a bit closer to the middle than where we have been, because we've kind of been like 70-30, 65-35, 65-35. Like, we've been fairly over aggressive on the run side of it. And I think that you can definitely find a balance, but to the point that a lot of people are making, why go away from something that is getting you wins? I mean, of course, you could test out, what would it look like in theory, if you end up making the playoffs and you need to win the game on the back of Jalen Hurts' arm. Could he do it? I mean, he went into the Super Bowl and went mano a mano, toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes, shot for shot, pass for pass with Patrick Mahomes. And we ended up losing that Super Bowl, but he did it. And I think that a lot of people forget there have been games almost every single season, multiple games every single season, where he's had to use his arm. He's been super effective, but everyone just ignores it because this season we've leaned so much into that run that everyone forgets Jalen Hurts can do it. He's done it. He's capable of doing it. He might not be your fourth quarter game-winning drive type of guy, but he's a guy that if you need to go shot for shot, he tends to be a guy who can do that. And it's an unfortunate reality that so many people have forgotten what Jalen Hurts is capable of with his arm because of this week and because of this, this week and everything with A.J. Brown and the passing comment and this season because we've been a predominantly running team. I think that it's just, there definitely needs to be a balance on this team, but it's so hard to go away from what's going well and what's allowing you to win these games. I mean, we did not get on this winning streak by, making bad decisions, putting the ball in harm's way, by just not playing smart football. We went back to the fundamentals defensively. We went back to old school fundamental NFL offense, pounding that rock with a super aggressive offensive line, one of the best, if not the best in the league, and one of the best, if not the best running back in the league. So, but I feel like there is something to say about Kellen Moore's comment when asked by the media. And one of the biggest things that he pushed out in front of them was, well, we've only turned the ball once since a bye week. That says something, though, because is that not because you've built the offense around protecting Jalen Hurts and his, possible turnover issue?
Well, when you're not throwing the ball as much, it's not putting the harms away as much. I do think that, especially last week, Jalen shied away from making some throws. That was my one concern. Excuse me, is that he shied away from those, but I believe that he can make these throws. I don't think just because the Eagles are a good running team, it doesn't make them one-dimensional. They still can pass the football if needed. They just really haven't had to. Like, again, and something that we have said time and time again, why would you go away from something that is working? If a team is able to shut down Saquon Barkley, like literally, which no team has been able to do so far this year. But if a team is able to shut down Saquon, I have faith that Jalen can go out there and throw the football. You have Devontae Smith, you have A.J. Brown, when Dallas Goedert's healthy, Grant Calcaterra, like he has that ability, but he hasn't been put into a situation where he needs to do it. Will that time come this week or but before the end of the regular season? Potentially, possibly. Do you want to see it? Maybe, but I'm not going to go out of my way to change up the offense and go away from what was working. If the Steelers are completely able to shut down Saquon Barkley on Sunday, I have faith that he can go out there and toss the ball across around the yard, around the field. But I'm not going to force that until it needs to be forced.
Yeah, and I know, I was watching Get Up on ESPN this morning, and they somebody had made I think it was Graziano made the comment that he's talked to executives, some people around the league, and one of the things they said is Jalen Hurts looks like he's trying to throw too fast, go through his progressions too fast, or he's going through his progressions too slowly and not reacting quick enough sometimes. And he hasn't been able to and this has been an issue long, this is not just a this year issue. This has long been, however he processes a play, it's either sometimes too fast or it's sometimes too slow. When it's on, but you definitely can see last week was one of those ones where it was way too slow. They used the term burping the baby, because how many times did he drop back and it was hitting a hand against the ball, like he was thinking about throwing, like he thought he had something, and then he didn't do it, and then it ended up in a throwaway or an incomplete pass. It's true about Jalen Hurts that he is not a, pocket passer. We know that. You know that with most running quarterbacks. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. He's not really a full-on pocket passer. But at the end of the day, he needs to be able to become more confident in himself, because it feels like since those first few weeks where he did end up committing a lot of turnovers, they have kind of tried to protect him from making bad decisions and putting the ball in harm's way. And I feel like to get that balance with this team and to get that confidence back and instilled in Jalen Hurts, he needs to be able to find that balance and be able to go through his progressions and make the right decision at the right time, which it seemed like he was maybe reacting too quickly in the early part of the season, and now he's just reacting too slowly as the season has been going on.
I find it funny that, like last year, I think it was last year, that we had fans in front of NovaCare Complex telling the Eagles to run the ball more. Now we're running the ball more, and people are like, we need to pass the ball more. There's no pleasing Eagles fans out there.
I mean, I just want to win. In Eagles fans' defense, I mean, I think a lot of fans, like I see when I go on X, a lot of fans who are like, we're winning. Why can't we just enjoy this? I see more fans saying that. I think it's the media that's pushing in the way, like, you can't have nice things. You need to pass the ball more. Why are you running the ball so much? It feels like the media is pushing that. And of course, there's some people who watch these shows and idolize these people and are like, yeah, we need to pass more. We need to pass more. Not making their own thoughtful and educated, opinion on the circumstance. We are winning football games. We are on a 9-game winning streak, and we are literally sitting here talking about all the negatives of this team and nothing positive. I mean, we haven't really touched on the defense very much because we've been going in on the offense, but we can touch on the defense and it gets really good. And there's good things about the offense. There's 5 men plus a running back who have been the best in the NFL this season at what they do. And that is why we are winning football games, and people are telling us to go away from it.
Ryan, thanks for joining us. I disagree that we don't need to see 230 to 240 passing yards a game. It's not a need. A lot of the times, and this isn't 2022, the Eagles would pass the ball early, run the ball late because they would be up big in the second half. This year, they're able to run the football at will. Like Saquon's averaging, 5-6 yards a carry, 4 to 6 yards a carry, whatever it is. I don't need to see the Eagles go out there and throw the ball to get to up to 230 to 240 yards a game. If the Eagles throw the ball 20 yards and does it seem like it's a high school type of numbers where when Jalen has 115 yards passing? Sure, but they are winning games. I don't care if they run the ball 150 times and or throw the ball 50 times as long as they win the game. The running game is the strength of this team. And I'm going to continue to run the football down the throat until a team is able to stop it. And then, as we're in the middle of the run, I'm going to throw in some play action in there. The one thing I don't want to see when we throw the football is a bunch of screens. That's annoying. I can't stand when we do the receiver screens. I feel like that's always the first one. And I don't think being a running team is going to get us exposed in the playoffs. You potentially could face Washington. Washington has one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. We can do what we did to them the first time. We can still run through them. Detroit is the Vikings. I still don't know what to make of the Vikings. They're a tough team to like. They're 11-2.
Fraudulent. Like I don't even know. Like I want to say they are, but
remember
they
when Case Keenum was their quarterback and when they went to the NFC Championship in 2017? I don't think that Vikings team was very good. They got lucky in the Minnesota Miracle against the Saints, and that's what that. Now I could be completely wrong, but that's what the Viking team feels like right now. The only Green Bay is good, and I think Green Bay would be a nice battle, and Detroit. Detroit and Green Bay, I think the two teams in the NFC. I don't think we will get exposed because I think that our offensive line is good enough that we can run it down any of these teams' throats. And they're still good enough in the passing game that if they needed to lean on the passing game, they'd be able to. But until, again, as I mentioned earlier, until a team literally stops Saquon Barkley, why would you force throws? And again, we've talked about it. Jalen has the propensity, and it doesn't always happen, but has the propensity to potentially turn the ball over when he's lean. If you have to throw the ball 30 times a game, as most quarterbacks, the more you throw it, the more chances that there's opportunities for it to get picked off. So again, I'm not going to force him to throw the football if the running game is working. I like to win. I don't give a crap how it's done. And again, you say you don't want to be exposed in the playoffs. I don't think being a running football team is going to expose you in the playoffs. Has a primary running football team won a Super Bowl? I don't think so. There's always a first time for everything. It could potentially happen. But I also think that if a team does stop Saquon, which is easier said than done, that Jalen will be able to get the ball to AJ, will be able to get the ball to Devontae, will be able to get to a healthy Dallas Goedert when he's back. They will be able to make those plays. And I don't think they're doing this, but maybe, Kellen Moore could be holding a couple of pass, concepts, pass plays in his back pocket for later in the year in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think it's often we've said it. How many times this season? I think it's been 3, 4, maybe 5 times we've said it this year. AJ Brown has had the silentest 100-yard games you're ever going to see. And the reason it's the most silent 100-yard games you ever did see is because the thunder is stolen from Saquon Barkley. But why don't people look back at those 3 or 4 games? AJ Brown was just as vital in some of these games with 100 yards and a touchdown, or just 100 yards.
He has over 800 yards receiving. He's missed, 3 or 4 games?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, have we not looked back at those games and realized, oh, Jalen Hurts threw a really good ball this game to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown made some really big and impactful catches. Do we forget that those things have happened in games? It's just they've been overshadowed by Saquon going for 200 all-purpose yards almost every single game from the line of scrimmage that he's been putting that up. I think it was Jeff Kerr who at the peak part of the week, I think it was Monday morning after the AJ Brown comment, he posted stats about Jalen Hurts and how he's all the winning records, same as Nick Sirianni. Since Sirianni has come into the league, Sirianni is one of the most winningest coaches in the league. Since Sirianni's come into the league, Jalen Hurts is one of the most winningest quarterbacks in the league. And his final comment at the end of his tweet and putting all that info out there was, what happened to win it? There's constantly this, I know there was and I shared it because I thought it was worthwhile to note. We've had one of the easiest defensive schedules. I get it. Okay. It happens. You can only play what's in front of you. And we've been able to win these games. We've been able to play these games. There's constantly an excuse. Some people are saying, why aren't the Chiefs catching flack for dragging themselves to 10 victories? Was it 12 victories this year by 1 score or less, which is 8 points or less? This team has won 100% of the games that were decided by 1 score, and no one is giving them any flack. They're good, and granted, they're 2-time Super Bowl champions, going for their 3rd, so maybe they're able to be given a little bit of room to breathe. But maybe, half their games, maybe 10 games, but every single game this season winning by that margin, and no flack being caught within the media, no flack being caught in general, just because it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, it's a 2-time Super Bowl champions, it's Andy Reid. Where when you look statistically, the only thing that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts have not done in the NFL is win a Super Bowl. Otherwise, they've essentially, from a win perspective, absolutely dominated. They are top 5 as a coach and as a quarterback since they were put together in this league over the last 4 seasons. And I ask the same question as Jeff Kerr. What happened to winning? Just hard-nosed winning football games and taking what you're given. Because Ryan, I want to go back to this comment. It's all about the Super Bowl. It's not much just winning a lot in the regular season. Yes, it does matter to win in the regular season and to win a lot in the regular season. That is how you position yourself as a team that is meant to compete for the Super Bowl. And prior to this week, we were at the forefront of every discussion and of being a Super Bowl contending team in a Super Bowl. Like, we're 2 weeks removed from a matchup where everyone was hyping it up as a potential Super Bowl matchup. And now it's almost like everyone is discounting us because of one word that one player said in a press conference after the 9th straight victory for this football team.
And of course, as he said, the media and people misconstrued it. He should have said it was the passing game. Was he frustrated? He wasn't, and he wasn't the only. He wasn't the only one frustrated. Devontae Smith was frustrated. Everybody on the Jalen was frustrated. The entire offense was frustrated, especially because they came into the game as a 13-point favorite. So they thought that they should have played better. They should have executed better. We all agree with that. But the comments were misconstrued, and it took away from them winning the game and being on this winning streak that they're on.
Yeah, definitely. And Ryan, I mean, I agree with you at the end of the day. It's not just about winning the regular season. The goal is a championship. The playoffs are a whole different story. Can we stop saying all he does is win? It's all about a ring. I mean, at the end of the day, he does win a lot. You can't just deny it. And I agree. The one thing, and I made that comment just a few seconds ago, the one thing missing in this whole repertoire, which even if he gets a ring, there's going to be things said. They're going to pick apart other parts of the season and not think about the Super Bowl ring. Yes, the only thing that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts have not done yet is bring that ring to Philadelphia. Will it happen this year? That's to be determined. And there's still a lot of football to be played. And
it's also crazy because people talk about Jalen Hurts, but he's been to a Super Bowl. Lamar hasn't. Josh Allen hasn't. Justin Herbert hasn't even won a playoff game.
So all they do is win, but they don't got a ring, and they don't face the same scrutiny to the same level of Jalen
Prescott has
Hurts.
never gotten past the second round. Like, there's people talk about all of these quarterbacks, and yet a lot of them have never been to the Super Bowl, but Jalen has been to the Super Bowl. And he continues to lead the Eagles to a position to potentially get to the Super Bowl. Like, Lamar has a couple of MVPs, lost in the home AFC Championship game last year. Josh Allen, has he been to an AFC Championship game? I think he might have been to one.
He's been to one.
He was and lost to the Chiefs, and they blew that game in 13 seconds left. Now, I'm not saying that's on him, but still, they blew the game. Again, Justin Herbert, everybody puts him as the top 5 quarterback. You know, the only quarterback that, like, obviously, those that won a Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes, but like Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. So, you know, we can kind of compare him there. But Joe Burrow is number 1 in the league in passing. Jamar Chase, number 1 in the league in receiving. And guess what? They're 5-8. They're not winning games, but they're passing the ball all over the field. How does that help them in the playoffs if they're not going to make the playoffs?
And Ryan says, if we didn't have Saquon, then how would the passing be? I mean, we've seen Jalen throw the ball. We didn't have Saquon Barkley when we went to the Super Bowl, and he was able to throw his way one-on-one, toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, and it just came down to the possession and who had the ball last, and you give the ball to Patrick Mahomes last, and guess what he's going to do? He's going to win the football game.
And a phantom holding penalty on Bradbury, but that's a different story for a different day. I also think the offense would be different. Like, we have Saquon, so we are a running football team. Last year, we didn't have Saquon, and we were a passing team, and it looked good for the first 11 weeks of the year, and then we had the nightmarish ending of the year. So, again, it all depends on your personnel. If we didn't have Saquon, who else would we have? Would we have a Derrick Henry? Would we still have DeAndre Swift? Like, you have to think about that. Like, okay, you're taking Saquon out of the equation. Who are you putting there? That can change. Like, we would probably be more of a passing team, and I still think that we would be able to move the football. It just, the personnel we have right now, we have Saquon. So
with this offensive line, we've consistently been one of the top running teams in the league. It doesn't matter who you plop back there. We consistently are. It just so happens we have a guy who is on a record-setting pace. The goalposts continue to move on Saquon Barkley and this offense, strictly based on the fact that the passing game doesn't need to get used that much. And when it has been used, yes, it has looked lackluster at times. But again, look back at some of the games where Devontae Smith had big games and A.J. Brown had big games. Who's throwing the football to them? It wasn't Kenny Pickett. It was Jalen Hurts throwing the football. So he's showing that he can do it, and he's been there. And it just, again, this all stems from one word made. I mean, Brandon Graham didn't help. He kind of fanned the fire even more. But even Brandon Graham said he was presumptive a lot in his approach. And then you see there's reports that have come out that, people say that, that AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts are like a bad couple. They constantly, they bicker. They're like best friends, and then the next day they hate each other. Like it just is the relationship that they have. And I mean, some best friends, that's the relationship and the rapport they work with. But I don't think professionally that is going to ultimately impact their ability to play together. And I think that we're going to see multiple more big AJ Brown games and multiple games where Jalen Hurts silences the critics, but there's always something to pick apart in Jalen Hurts games. And the media always seems to love to do it. But we're going to see a big Jalen Hurts pass game, and we're going to see some big AJ Brown games. I promise it. Between now and the end of the season, the playoffs, the Super Bowl, however far we get, there will be games where you see Jalen Hurts in a big moment making plays and A.J. Brown in a big moment making plays and Saquon Barkley not even involved in the mix.
We kind of do want him involved in the mix.
We do, but
I would like to see him break the record. I mean, even A.J. Brown says, like, he always talks about when you get to the third or fourth quarter, he tells Saquon, put the cape on, let Superman be Superman and go out there and win the game. Like, so, again, while you have him, use him. Like, he's only going to – I know he has a 3-year contract, but, like, the chances of him – he's going to be here, 3, 4, maybe 4 years, who knows. Like, use him while you have him. You don't want to regret not, taking advantage of the talent that you have him. So we kind of got away from talking about the Steelers a little bit. On offense, we talked about Russell Wilson. Najee Harris is pretty good. He's a tough tackler. The receivers are going to be Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Mike Williams, Ben Skoranek, and they got a really talented tight end in Pat Fryermuth, and Darnell Washington is a huge guy out of Georgia. Their offensive line is okay. They have Isaac Seumalo, former Eagle at left guard. Broderick Jones is one of their top draft picks out at right tackle from Georgia. So it should be an interesting battle between, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, and this Steelers offensive line. Hopefully the Eagles defense, we're healthy on the back end. We get Reed Blankenship back. We saw the communication issues when he wasn't in the game, and Xavier Legette got behind Slay and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So hopefully we don't have any of that. We saw what Thielen was able to do against Cooper DeJean, his welcome to the league moment. So we'll see if Cooper DeJean's able to step up and have a big game. Quinyon Mitchell still doing Quinyon Mitchell things. Darius Slay having a really good season. When he's able to stay on the field, he's been having issues. And then obviously, Zach Ball having a defensive player of the year type of season, an all-pro year, and Nakobe Dean. It should be a very fun battle. And one thing we know about Russell Wilson, he's not going to hold on to the football. If he doesn't see anybody, he has no issues with throwing it away. So we'll see if the Eagles don't allow, quick short passes. And if they do complete short passes, make the tackle, don't allow yards after the catch by the Steelers receivers.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers offense generally is fairly average. Like, they're nothing really exciting. I mean, we're talking about a team that's on their second quarterback of this season already in Russell Wilson. But I mean, we should never rule Russell Wilson out because
he was always going to be the starter. He was hurt.
Yeah, he was always meant to be the starter. Exactly. And Russell Wilson, like, at the end of the day, we've yet to beat Russell Wilson. We've yet to find the way. But I mean, this is a team that, they're smart with the football. They take what's given to them. They're similar to the Eagles. They have a good rushing attack. They like to try and exploit that. They're second in rushing attempts in the league. Guess who's number one? The Philadelphia Eagles. So you got two teams that are going to try and assert their dominance on the ground, with decent offensive lines. I mean, I think I give the edge fairly significantly to the Eagles over the Steelers offensive line, but the Steelers offensive line is still able to kind of impose their will in a way. I mean, they rank second in attempts, they rank ninth in rushing yards. They do well there. They rank 26th in passing attempts, or 23rd in yards through the air. So, I mean, ultimately, they're not an exciting. Neither of these offenses are necessarily going to be overly exciting. I mean, this is like you said, the Arthur Smith offense. You know, this is what we saw was very bland. It was very boring. It was an attempt to focus around the run in Atlanta as well. Just so happened to not be around Bijan Robinson, the running back that, you know, was drafted in the first round by the Falcons. But I mean, this is a team that this defense should be able to take advantage of. Like, I'm not going to speak the Kenyon Mitchell interception into existence. It's not worth talking about anymore. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And Russell Wilson's a smart quarterback. They rank extremely low in interceptions. They've only thrown 4 interceptions all year, which ranks 3rd in the NFL. And that's between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And like you said, Russell Wilson's just going to literally take what's given to him, but they struggle to score. They rank 29th in red zone scoring percentage. You've only scored on 45.7% of drives in the red zone, which is 29th in the NFL. They're just not a team that, you know, scores that way. They score after the play and with big plays. And it just so happens that their biggest player in George Pickens is not going to be in the lineup again this week, which I think is going to be vital. I mean, Mike Williams is a shell of what he was when he was posting 1,000-yard seasons in LA. Calvin Austin is an undersized guy who, you know, a guy like Cooper DeJean or Kenyon Mitchell, if you get your hands on Calvin Austin, if you can take that speed element out of it for just a few seconds, then Russell Wilson has no chance to hit a guy hit a guy like that. Pat Freiermuth, I think, is probably their best weapon that they're going to be able to use. And we know Nakobe Dean's not the best in coverage. We know Zach Bond's fairly good in coverage, so we'll see what happens with that matchup. Maybe they use Cooper DeJean on Pat Freiermuth to try and stop him with just savvy, you know, slot corner play. I know Cooper DeJean's coming off a game where Adam Thielen kind of feasted on him, but I feel like that's more of the one-off situation for a guy like Cooper DeJean. We were seeing the real Cooper DeJean in the weeks prior to that, I think, in a very fundamentally sound football player who can make plays and who can step up and make stops when he's most needed. And I think he can continue to do that even against a guy like Pat Freiermuth. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do, but you definitely know that they're going to try and impose their will on the ground. And we have one of the best run defenses in the league as well, which definitely points us, leads to the assumption, like, are we going to force Russell Wilson to the air? They have one of the best run defenses as well. Are they going to force us to the air, or are we just going to be two teams sticking with our strength?
Our run defense the last couple of weeks hasn't been that good, though. Baltimore ran a lot on us. Carolina did last week too. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they try to get Najee Harris going. I do know one thing. If it comes down to field goal kicking, I trust Chris Boswell over Jake Elliott right now. Boswell's on a pace to set the record for field goals, and he might even break the points record this year. I mean, he's had a couple of games where he's kicked 6 field goals. You know, they've won a couple of games where all they did was kick field goals and didn't score touchdowns. So hopefully it doesn't come down to a field goal making contest, because if that's the case, Boswell is definitely the guy I would take over Jake Elliott right now, and I never really thought I would say that. But Elliott is struggling. And I saw somebody bring up a point. Do you think Elliott's struggling because he's not doing kickoffs anymore?
I was going to bring that point up too to you, because I saw that same point that was made. He has, I think the stat was he's kicked off twice this year. They've given the kicking off duties to Braden Mann. Yeah. And ironically, as soon as he's pulled away from that job, his field goal percentage plummets. Like, there could be something to that. I know, like, that's something you're never going to be able to dive into and truly figure out. But I think there's something to that, because when you get to go and you get to kick the ball as hard as you want, and, like, you know, guys like a guy like Jake Elliott probably tried to kick his kickoffs fairly straight, fairly deep. Maybe that there is definitely a point to be made that should he move back to kickoffs, and for a little bit and see what happened. I know that maybe they're trying to preserve him from injury, but would there be the thought to put him back there and see if that helps his confidence as a field goal kicker again? I mean, he hasn't hit a field goal from 50 plus yards and he's not kicking off anymore. He has not hit one. So, I mean, and this was a guy we could trust 50 plus. It was almost automatic and now he's not. And the one thing different this year from last season is the fact he's not kicking off.
Yep. William Quinn Jr. Joins us. Thank you. Hurts is a winning quarterback. That he is. Is he struggling throwing the football right now? Probably a little bit, but again, I still have faith that if they needed to win a game by throwing the football, he would be able to do it, especially with the weapons that they have on the outside. All right, so before we get to our player of the game, keys to the game, and our predictions, let's do our unheralded player of the week for week 14 in the NFL. Do you want to go first, Connor, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I'm giving it to Zach Charbonnet.
Okay.
I mean, not really. Like, he's a guy who's had his games. He gets to step up, when Kenneth Gainwell's injured, and Kenneth Walker, and he's been injured a lot this season, and Charbonnet's been able to step in very well. The Seahawks are looking, well, I think they've one of the hardest schedules the last 4 games. They're expected to, per ESPN analytics, are expected to be the underdog in 3 of the 4. And the other ones, the last one's like a 50-50 toss-up at this point. So it sucks that the Seahawks have gotten all the way to 8-5 in a division where the 49ers are completely out of it. The Rams are there, but, that game was very ugly on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see, and the Cardinals are starting to fall off. So Zach Charbonnet went 22 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, huge in a divisional Seahawks victory over the Cardinals 30-18 last week. Probably, not the most exciting one to pick because whenever the number 1 RB's been injured, he's been able to step up and have some big games, but it was a career high 134 yards for him. So Zach Charbonnet for me. And I mean, I should have given it to the guy who blocked the punt for the Cowboys because he made a complete mockery of the Cowboys' opportunity to win. And according to Jerry Jones, should have just left it to be kicked because they had a better chance to do something with the punt. Whoever lets that man speak, which I know it's him, but somebody's got to tell that guy to stop speaking. Like, that had to be one of the stupidest comments I've heard in a post-game presser ever.
Dallas found a new way to lose a game, which was awesome to watch. I'm going to go Isaac Guerendo of the Niners. This isn't counting yesterday. This is from last week. They beat the Bears 38-13. He had fit, and with Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason out, he got the start. 15 carries, 78 yards, 2 catches, 50 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns rushing. So Isaac Guerendo helping the Niners improve as of last week to, what was their record? 6-7 or something like that. I forget what their record is. They were 6-7. Now they're 6-8 after the loss yesterday to the Rams. All right, let's jump to the game. The Keystone State Battle, Eagles and Steelers. Give your offensive player, defensive player to watch and a key, and then your prediction after I give mine.
I mean, I honestly, for offensive player, I think there's just so much focus on A.J. Brown from every standpoint that I'm going to pick Devontae Smith. It just feels like that game where Devontae Smith hasn't really had a big game recently. He's had some targets. He hasn't had an opportunity. I do think, I'm hoping, praying it's not an overcompensation to like a 65-35 pass versus run split. But I do think that they're going to compensate in a way for the comments and they're going to try and prove as a team. Jalen Hurts wants to prove it. A.J. Brown wants to prove it. Nick Sirianni obviously wants to prove it. Kellen Moore wants to prove it. They're definitely going to try and show that they can throw the football, and they're going to attempt to take advantage of that. A.J. Brown, I mean, I posted this stat earlier. They do play one of the highest amounts of man coverage, but they do play one of the lowest amount of man coverage on later downs, which would be your third down spot. So if we're going to throw the ball and take advantage of man coverage, and A.J. Brown's being very good against man and Jalen Hurts being very good throwing against man, it's going to have to be in the early downs where you would think they would focus on run. So there's going to be such a shift in script, or they're just going to throw on, the very predictable downs, like the second down and long maybe, or the third down and medium or long. They could just own those predictable scenarios. But I'm going Devontae Smith. Everyone's going to say A.J. Brown. All the attention is going to be on A.J. Brown. The Steelers are going out there with all eyes on A.J. Brown. So I'm going with Devontae Smith because I think that Jalen Hurts is going to see an opportunity to also hit another guy who's very good against man coverage in Devontae Smith. Keys to winning, stick to what's working on offense. Do not overcompensate. Do not completely abandon Saquon Barkley. I don't care as much about the record. I think this ultimately is going down as a completely historic season for Saquon Barkley, especially after what we saw the prior years with the New York Giants and the waste that they almost made him look like, the waste of talent there in New York. So no matter what, this is a huge season for Saquon Barkley, but don't abandon what's working just because everybody wants to see if Jalen Hurts can throw the football or if A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts can rekindle that connection. So don't overcompensate. Keep working with what's working. And Jalen Hurts just has to improve on the minimal throws. If he's throwing 15 to 20 times a game, go through your reads at the pace you need to and make the play that you need to. Don't go too slow. Don't go too fast. Find that opening and hit that opening with your pass. Defensively, I'm going to go with Kenyon Mitchell on this one. I think like Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, I almost think that they go hand in hand. This is a game where like you're definitely going to need that front three, a little bit of pressure on Russell Wilson, but that Russell Wilson can get the ball away really quickly. So you have to make sure there is no target available for him to get, and make sure that, he's forced to make a decision that could ultimately lead to a turnover or a play where we can force a stop. So I'm going with Kenyon Mitchell because I feel like something's telling me, like my gut, that this is a game. This is a game where he makes that interception. He finally makes something happen, but he would have to have the ball thrown his way. But because there's no George Pickens, because of the look of this wide receiving core, there's a chance that you can make that happen, because who's he going to throw to? You never know. You might not be avoiding Kenyon Mitchell's side of the field because you're just going to try and hit what you can hit. And I guess defensively, this is kind of like my key to the game, going against Kenyon Mitchell is they got to improve on the run. They got to improve against the run. They got to make the stops. They can't let Najee Harris get going. It's not like Najee Harris is this electric running back. He's just a thumping running back who can take a lot of punishment and just keep going. So you have to make sure you make that hit, you make that play. Couple, Cooper DeJean on Derrick Henry type tackles against Najee Harris. Make those stops. We know Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean rank 1 and 2 in stops. Like, we need a few of those stops this week to force them to go to the air, because that's where they can make more mistakes and that's where things are going to go wrong. And as we've seen, just as the Eagles are very good at running, you can mask a lot of weaknesses when you run the football and when you're really good at running the football. So exploit Russell Wilson and exploit this offense's lack of passing ability and force them to go to the air. I feel like the Steelers might be more likely to abandon their run game than we are likely to abandon our run game. It's a tough one, though. It's close because Arthur Smith loves his run game. So, but I feel like we can probably put points up quicker than the Steelers can that might force them to abandon that.
Well, I don't think Mike Tomlin will allow them to abandon the run game.
I don't think so either. I know. Boy, Mike Tomlin's in your ear. Arthur Smith it's been a little bit different than when Arthur Smith is answering to Arthur Smith. So, prediction?
Well, let me give my players first and then give your prediction.
Give your players, yeah.
My offensive player is going to be Lane Johnson because he's going to be lining up against TJ Watt most of the game. And we need to find a way to neutralize TJ Watt. If I'm the Eagles, I run right at him, just like you run right at Micah Parsons. Don't allow him to chase the play from behind and potentially, make a play and force a fumble by coming up from behind. So I'm going to go Lane Johnson on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, let's go Zach Bond. He's just been so good, and he may have to go up against Pat Freiermuth. So I'm going to go Bond just because, he's the guy going sideline to sideline along with Nakobe Dean. But, he's been all over the field for the Eagles. They're going to blitz him a couple of times, and when he blitzes, he's going to have to make a play. So I'm going to go Lane Johnson and Zach Bond
Michael Mitchell, thanks for joining. He picked Zach Bond as well, and then he picked AJ Brown. I think that's like the generic 90% of people are going to go as AJ Brown this week because they want to see that AJ Brown game and that connection rekindled. So,
and hopefully, my key is going to be hopefully let's start quick and score in the first quarter. I know it's probably not going to happen, but let's see if we can start quick, because if you start quick and get the fans into it, then, all the stuff that happened this week, they might forget. But if, say, you don't score early, don't score in the first quarter, and the offense is struggling, we know it's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of boo birds, so we don't want that to happen. Defensively, just tackle and get out. Defensively, tackle and get after Russell Wilson.
Yeah, the Steelers rank 14th in average points per drive and 18th in yards per drive. They just get lucky enough that they start at their own 31.9, which ranks 5th for starting position on a drive. So we know Braden Mann, former Steeler, can bury teams as well. So if you make the Steelers work with more and have to start putting up points, an early start is definitely important. If you can put them behind, 7-10-0 right off the bat would be nice. But I think our point differential in the first quarter is like minus 42. So I don't know how excited I am getting about that. So,
all right, prediction time. Who you got?
I hate to do this, but I got the Steelers. I'm going Steelers this week. I want to say the Eagles so badly. And I know that this is going to lead to like the swarm of the negativity from the media, but I'm going to go with the Steelers on this one. And I'm going to go 24-21. I think it's going to be close, and it's going to come down to that field goal. It's going to come down to that, we leave the drive open for Boswell and Russell Wilson to only need to get into field goal range, and they take full advantage.
I'm going 27-24 Eagles. I think that all the stuff that happened this week is actually going to galvanize the team and bring them together. And they're probably going to start slow, but I don't think it's going to allow them to affect them. And I do think that the running game is going to get going. The running game, Saquon's going to bring it home in the end. And I do think that Jalen, makes a couple of throws to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to get the passing game going. Is he going to have 250 yards passing? Probably not. But I don't need him to have 250 yards passing. I just need him to go out there and keep, make throws when he's called upon to make throws and protect the football. And if they can do that, the Eagles are going to win. And I have them winning 27-24. This is your chance because you're a game behind me. So if the Steelers win, then you tie it all.
I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right. I mean, to challenge the media, I want some really nice throws, maybe a couple nice passing touchdowns, and it doesn't have to be like you said.
I mean, he did throw for two passing touchdowns last week. People seem to forget that.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be fine with 150 and 2 passing touchdowns and just a couple really nice pass plays that get people going, okay. But let's be realistic. Win, lose, draw, they're going to still pick Jalen Hurts apart next week in the media.
Yep.
No matter what.
I feel like he's one of the most overly scrutinized quarterbacks in football for no reason whatsoever. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour as the Eagles look for their 10th consecutive victory in this Keystone State battle against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. And follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. Also follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. For Connor, I'm LJ. We'll see you next week right here on the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.